This is Liz Alpert Fay from Sandy Hook, Connecticut. Memoir synopsis. Marissa Bina Russo, 84 by 60 by 1 inch. Hand-dyed wool on linen and jewels. Detail of the 8th hand-hook portrait in a series entitled Ordinary/Extraordinary Women. These are larger-than-life portraits of women I know and admire. I am only showing details of the works until they are all exhibited together. This is a collaboration between Marissa Bina Russo, a children's book author and illustrator, and my portrait of Jessie Turbane, 82 by 37 by 1 inch. Recycled and hand-dyed wool on linen, antique braid, pins, needles, beads. 7th larger-than-life hand-hook portrait in the Ordinary/Extraordinary Women series. This portrait is based on a photo I took of Jessie Turbane working in her studio. It also incorporates elements created in punch needle embroidery and mixed media. Jessie is an author, conservatory, and international authority on hooked rugs. And this is Judy Beck, Montclair, New Jersey. Experiment, 26 by 20 inches, various wools, ribbons, and beads. A scrumbled free-form crochet/knit piece that evolved from a scarf that was not working. I just let the crochet hook lead the way. I used lots of bits and pieces from my stash, and I had no vision for what it would ultimately be until the beading started. Bud 84, 34 by 10 inches, wool, ribbon, and beads. This neck piece is constructed from various knit/crochet freeform patches. I was led to create neck pieces when I realized women of a certain age needed something fabulous to make them feel less invisible. Stacy Bogdonoff, New York City. That happened. 50 by 50 by 3 inches. Cotton, paper, wire. My art focuses on the theme of, quote, home and shelter, and how our understanding of that changes as we age. My work evolves within this theme, and it is often driven by material exploration and experimentation. I use non-traditional weaving techniques and work with paper, wire, mixed media, paint, and shellac. 18 houses, 60 by 48 by 1 inch. Textiles, paper, and silk. Joan Diamond, Maplewood, New Jersey. Silk and wool blend scarf, 80 by 13.5 inches. Silk and wool blend. Come lockdown, I faced a long neglected project of launching the store part of my website. To stock it, I explored the technique of machine-stitched shibori on scarves. While fooling around with different substrates, I found 2 materials which yielded a visual effect of in and out of focus. Exploitation of this effect has become the basis for current artwork. Double-sided scarf, 69 by 10 inches, silk organza and wool.
Susan Faeder, Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. COVID-2, 10 by 10 inches, hand-dyed indigo commercial fabrics, Japanese shashiko thread, embroidery thread, glass beads. This is one of 3 in a meditation series using the same interlocking linear design, stitched with Japanese shashiko embroidery technique and then beaded 1 by 1. COVID-1 is red and COVID-3 is blue. Together, they represent the colors of the American flag and represent, for me, the political issues of 2020 occurring simultaneously to COVID. The work is mounted on a canvas frame with batting between. 3 Friends, 14 by 14 inches. Vintage Japanese hand-woven and hand-dyed cotton kimono, remnants, treasures, broken porcelain, beads, and baubles. This is an intuitive fiber collage constructed from fabrics that 3 Japanese friends gifted me too late to be used in my 100-day challenge of amulets in July 2019. These surviving rags recall a time when cloth was made from plants and honored the spirit of both the makers and the weavers. Sewn onto cream background and mounted on a canvas frame with batting between.
Teri Figliuzzi, New York City. Woven lumen print 2, 19 by 13.5 inches. Rice paper and metallic thread. This year, I continued working with photographic alternative process of cyanotypes and lumen prints using botanicals in all phases of their life cycle. Selected images made during the process are then digitally printed on rice paper, spliced, woven, and stitched with metallic thread. Woven lumen print 3, 19 by 13.5 inches, rice paper and metallic thread. Marilyn Henrion, New York City. West 3rd Street, 24 by 18 by 1 inch, cotton and canvas. My aesthetic vision is deeply rooted in the urban geometry of my surroundings. The presence of the human hand upon the cityscape expresses our eternal yearning for immortality, evidence that says, I was once here. The hand-stitched concentric circles which animate the surfaces reinforce the presence of the human hand and symbolize the fleeting nature of our existence on this landscape. East 34th Street, 24 by 18 by 1 inch, cotton and canvas.
Susan Hensel, Minneapolis, Minnesota. This piece, Fallen Monuments, is a digital embroidery on polyester felt, polyester embroidery thread, wood, and hand stitching. It's 17 by 48 by 13 inches. This is a sculpture that has several ways of display. I often design things for creativity and play, and this piece is no different. The owner can place it on a table in a variety of ways, or hang the base on the wall and sprinkle the vase forms through the house if they desire, thereby becoming part of the creative process. Escape capsule, digital embroidery on polyester felt, polyester embroidery thread, beads, hand stitching, wood, gesso, adhesive, and hardware, 24 by 52 by 5 inches. A digital embroidery made in the depth of the pandemic, this much exhibited piece of sculpture began as a proposed book, but insisted on becoming a more metaphorical vehicle for safe escapes. Judy Kirpich, Tacoma Park, Maryland. Indigo composition number 13, 78 by 85 inches. Chinese indigo cotton, hand-screened linen. To most people, I seem very strong and self-sufficient. Only upon closer inspection can you see the detail, complexity, and fragility of my emotional base. Like this fabric, for the careful observer, there is a lot to discover. Nancy Koenigsberg, New York City. Alone, 15 by 6 by 1.5 inches, coated copper wire and stone. Alone and Black 4, the next pieces, are fairly recent works, employing techniques I have been using for many years. Alone is comprised of sections made using a modified sumac technique. woven on a frame loom and then assembled and sewn together. For Black 4, I've used knotting to construct several sections layered to create various densities. It's 28 by 28 by 3/4 inches, coated copper wire. My interest lies in form and texture. The copper wire I use allows me to explore both of these areas. I often choose to work in black to keep the focus on these elements. I see myself as a builder, as I enjoy assembling parts to create a form, and am happy to say that I have new work underway. Lisa Lackey, Maplewood, New Jersey. Theme Shmeem, 18 by 18 by 1 inch. Fabrics and threads on canvas. During and since the COVID quarantine, I've been re-examining my home environment for organically occurring compositions in my everyday life. Theme Shmeem is my Sunday morning breakfast table, replete with the New York Times crossword of that name. Fabrics were collaged onto a canvas backing and overstitched for detail. Everything but the kitchen sink, 30 by 38 by 1 inch. Mixed papers and chiffon. Continuing my study of home life, this paper collage asks the viewer to stop and look at how even the mindless stacking of dishes in a sink can result in a fascinating composition of circles and patterns, colors and textures. This study of domestic life reinforces my belief that if I take the time to see what is in front of me, beautiful images will be discovered in the most surprising of places, even the kitchen sink. Judy Langille. Inside Out 2, 27 by 22 by 1 inch, painted canvas. Inside Out 2 is created from a variety of hand-painted canvases. The labor-intensive construction of these pieces was a perfect way for me to pass time in lockdown while exploring a new three-dimensional way to express how architecture influences my work. Facade 5, 32 by 32 by 4 inches. Dyed silk, pellon, flannel, and threads. Facade 5 was inspired by a trip to Italy. Touring through an unfamiliar city and coming across unexpected architectural details led me to a fascination with the stories within the stones. Very close looking at an ancient facade inspired this piece of work. JoAnne Lobotsky, Bronx, New York. How it was left. This woven piece starts to become disorganized at the left and bottom sides, with some color from each area invading the other color. Meanwhile, a random element, the organza flowers, rains down over everything. My considerations were mostly formal in this piece, with randomness versus intentionality, chaos versus order, and logic versus illogic as the main focuses. Phoenix, 30.5 by 24 inches. Acrylic, pumice, tie heavy embossed mulberry paper on heavyweight watercolor paper. This intuitively created piece relates to regeneration and growth occurring in surprising places. It imagines the gathering of various strengths to overcome adversity. Awkwardness and imperfection are always part of my work and may be seen in the variety of widths of the woven areas. Randomness, another frequent element, occurs most overtly in the papier-mâché blotches across the piece.
Patricia Malarcher, Englewood, New Jersey. Old Bones. 33 by 1 by 18 inches. Fabric, thread, and caustic. Each piece was stitched, shaped by hand, and dipped in caustic. Seasons, 35 by 52 by 1/2 inch. Fabric, thread, and caustic. Again, each piece was stitched, shaped by hand, and dipped in caustic. Erma Martin Yost, Carlisle, PA. Morning Messenger, 16 by 20 by 2.5 inches framed. Wool felt, thread, beads.
A continuation of my Seasons series, my aim is to express cycles found in nature, seasonal cycles, plant cycles, cycles of the sun and moon, even life cycles. Assembling bits and pieces from my inner and outer worlds, I try to evoke a sense of place, solitude, and contemplation. 2020 prayer flags, 16 by 16 by 2.5 inches framed. Wool felt, cotton fabric, thread, beads.
Mary McFerran, Croton, New York. Masked, 31 by 23 inches. Velvet fabric, paper, stitching. For a while, during the pandemic lockdown, a neighbor and I would run into each other on our daily walks at the same time. It was like clockwork and strangely reassuring. She wore a bright red parka, red Walker, 27 by 26 inches, velvet fabric, paper, and stitching. Dominie Nash, Bethesda, Maryland. Musings 3, 22 by 28 inches, cotton, silk, organza, dye, pigment. Though not designed to use together in a new piece, these print fragments and samples, which were deconstructed screen prints and carved block clamp resist shibori, seemed harmonious when the circular motifs were combined. I enjoyed the surprise. Random Thoughts, a diptych, 41 by 34 inches, cotton, silk organza, dye, pigment. A drop cloth from previous print projects becomes an intentional piece with the addition of rubbings, applique, and transparent overlays. Carol Paik, New York City. Configuration, 24 by 44 by 12 inches. Pillows, zippers, button, thread. Configuration is part of a series of sculptures and corresponding 2D representations, exploring what zippers do to pillows, raising questions about the body, intimacy, and conflict. Business Attire, Dreams of a Different Life, 41 by 38 inches. Old shirts, neckties, socks, flannel blanket, bed sheet, and thread. Business Attire, Dreams of a Different Life is hand-pieced and hand-quilted out of repurposed fabrics, including, of course, business attire that has been taken apart and put back together, just as our lives must be as we return to a new normal. Ellen Ramsey, Lake Forest Park, Washington. Hacked, 48 by 54 inches, wool, silk, retro-reflective fiber, and metallic viscose. My current tapestries explore digital culture and the shared languages of weaving and circuit boards. Hacked, woven in 2020, portrays the ability to code as a source of power and confrontation. A Russian ransomware warning scrolls behind an infrastructure of circuitry. Wen Redmond, Stratford, New Hampshire. Navigating Awareness, 23 by 15 by 1/3 inches. Hand-pulled print, monoprinting, ink drawings, sewn watercolor paper, fibers, paint, digital images, collages, and mediums. Collage presents opportunities to pull together divergent materials to create a new work. Intuition plays a large part in creating these works and can become the basis for use as layering images and creating new digital photographs. Layers of meaning, 50 by 30 by 1/2 inch. It's mixed media. A collage the size of the finished piece was created using molding paste, paint, tea bags, liners, text, string, found items, gesso, and specialty mediums onto an interfacing substrate. This was stitched. An image was printed on digitally prepared silk organza, cut into segments, sewn only on top with a running stitch so it floats above, beckoning closer inspection.
Szilvia Revesz, Sparta, New Jersey. Ethereal Landscape Series, number 8, Wasteland. 45 by 29.5 inches. Paper, glow-in-the-dark polyester thread. My new work, Ethereal Landscape Series, explores ordinary objects in the natural world. In their elements and patterns, we normally overlook such things as stones. Unusual shapes that are suggestive of landscapes, creatures, real or imaginary. In search of imagery in unpredictable places, the work invites the viewer to ponder the notion of within, literally and philosophically.
Ethereal Landscape Series, number 11, Setting Sail. 40 by 24 inches, paper, glow-in-the-dark polyester thread.
Theda Sandiford, Jersey City, New Jersey. Heights over Springfield, 36 by 40 by 24 inches. Bottle caps, green 550 paracord, hollow braided polyurethane rope, solar LED rope lights, recycled commercial fishing net, zip ties, gold spray paint on recovered shopping cart. We all carry emotional baggage naturally. This manifests differently for each of us. Some of us carry suitcases of pain and bitterness, while some of us have just a backpack. I carry a lifetime of racial trauma. My baggage carts are designed as a vessel to separate myself from these experiences, to free myself from the constraints of the past. Heights over Springfield, night view, 36 by 40 by 24 inches. Larry Schulte, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Bell jar, 12 by 9 inches, collage and machine stitching on a page of a book. This work is one of 98 completed during the year of COVID isolation. Rick Rack Moon, 36 by 36 inches, acrylic paint on paper, cut in strips and woven. Kim Savoda, New York City. Orange flower, 11 by 14 by 1 1/2 inches. Cotton embroidery floss, quilted polyester air conditioner cover, fabric paint. 2020 was definitely an important year to keep my hands busy. Also a good year to remember previous vacations. Orange flower was from a photograph taken in a garden in Sydney, Australia. Good memories. Thread painting triptych. Each one is approximately 8 by 8 inches, mounted on a 10 by 10 inch square, 1 1/2 inches deep. Thread, dissolvable stabilizer, stretch canvas frame, acrylic paint. Thread painting triptych is an imaginary vacation I've yet to take. And Vollum, South Orange, New Jersey. Bat, 30 by 27 inches. Fabric, embroidery floss, buttons, acrylic. This hand-stitched quilt grew from a series of experiments over a long period of time. The bat was drawn. It was natural dyed, most likely with black walnut. Later, it was eco dyed using leaves and finally quilted, stitched intricately intricately and adorned with buttons to create a rich visual effect with hidden narratives. Self, a portrait in red. 17.5 by 19.5 by 1 1/8 inches. Linen, embroidery floss, acrylic paint. The portrait itself is completely hand-stitched using painterly overlapping in various directions stitches. All stitches use one strand of embroidery floss. The piece is also quite beautiful from the reverse side. Marguerite Wolfe, New York City. Auto parts. 12 by 16 inches, photo on silk. After having an arthritic bone removed from my right wrist last fall, I put aside needlework and concentrated on printing photos on silk. Auto Parts is one of 8 images in my series, Road North out of Nashville, that were taken off the highway, headed north, out of town, where you can still get a used tire for $3. Argyll's Music Store. 12 by 16 inches, photo on silk. Several years ago, I photographed these Southern scenarios that harken back to a humble Nashville's country and innocent roots. Argyll's Music Store, another in the Road North out of Nashville series, is a 125-year-old log cabin serving as a retail shop on the 4-lane highway. These silk photos will be quilted, gallery mounted, and framed.